A researcher once chose a path most men would never dare to walk, not because it was glamorous, not because it promised applause, but because it offered access to a truth most people prefer to avoid. For months, he interviewed more than 400 prostitutes, not driven by curiosity, not driven by scandal, and certainly not driven by moral judgment. He was driven by a single, unsettling question. What makes a man lose value in a woman's eyes? What he discovered dismantled nearly everything most men believe about attraction, desire, and rejection. Because the truth is this: men think value is lost in moments. Women experience it as a process. Most men believe attraction dies because of one visible mistake, a poorly worded message, a bad date, a sentence that landed wrong. That belief is comforting. It suggests control. It suggests logic. But it is false. Value is not lost loudly. It is lost quietly. It fades through silence, through repetition, through patterns so subtle the man experiencing them rarely notices until it is already over. One day, she simply looks at him differently, and he has no explanation. Here is the first uncomfortable truth. It does not matter how emotionally invested you are. It does not matter how available you become. It does not matter how hard you try to please her. If you communicate the wrong signals, desire does not decline gradually. It shuts off instantly. And the most painful part is this: often, she cannot explain why. Her body reacts before her conscious mind forms a narrative. Her nervous system decides long before her language catches up. This is not cruelty. This is biology. Any man who understands power understands this immediately. Power is not lost through catastrophic failure. It is lost through small gestures that reveal weakness. And when a man begins acting from fear, fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, he has already begun to lose. This is not a speech for men, for who want to be liked. This is for men who want to understand, because desire is not fair. It is not logical. It is not moral. It is biological. And any man who ignores its invisible rules will be discarded without explanation, without closure, and without negotiation. Today is not about how to make a woman like you. It is about understanding the behaviors that silently destroy your value even while you believe you are doing everything right. Because the enemy is not your appearance. It is not your income. It is not your personality. The enemy is what you communicate without realizing it. And if you are willing to look at the truth without anesthesia, you will understand something most men never grasp: how value is lost and how it is preserved. Most men do not lose value when they are rejected. They lose it long before rejection ever occurs. They lose it in hesitation, in poorly managed silence, in micro behaviors that expose anxiety. They lose it when they stop being a stimulus and become an emotional observer. One of the most common errors is early emotional overexposure. Showing too much interest too quickly does not read as sincerity. It reads as lack of options. At a biological level, desire does not respond to abundance of attention. It responds to selectivity, to restraint, to the feeling that interest must be earned rather than handed over. Another silent mistake is excessive availability. Instant replies, canceled plans, restructuring your life around her schedule. Each of these sends a message you may never intend, but her nervous system receives clearly. I have nothing more important than you. That may sound romantic in theory. In reality, it signals absence of direction, and direction is one of the primary currencies of masculine value. Then comes the most destructive pattern of all: validation seeking. Asking whether she likes you, fishing for reassurance, needing confirmation that you still matter, Anxiety is not invisible, it is felt. And when your emotional energy says, I need you to choose me, desire collapses. Not because you are unworthy, but because desire cannot survive in the presence of need. Power is never begged for, it is projected. And when a man operates from insecurity, every word he speaks, no matter how intelligent, loses weight. Value is not communicated through explanation. It is communicated through posture, restraint, and emotional control. Loss of value rarely looks like open rejection. More often, it looks like indifference. She replies less, laughs less, invests less. The shifts are small but destabilizing. And then comes the fatal response: compensation. More messages, more effort, more emotional availability. But all that effort confirms one thing: you are trying to recover interest that has already evaporated. She does not need to say it. Her tone already has. Here is the rule most men never learn: desire is not democratic. You cannot negotiate it. You cannot reason your way into it. You cannot explain yourself back into it. You can only understand what activates it and what destroys it. What activates it is centered energy, emotional independence, internal authority. What destroys it is anxiety, dependency, loss of inner structure. This is not about pretending to be ruthless or emotionally unavailable. It is about being internally stable. Because the moment you lose your center, you lose the interaction. And most men never realize when that moment occurs. They act from fear without naming it, from need without admitting it. And step by step, they lose value in the eyes of someone whose biology detects it long before her intellect does. If you have ever experienced sudden emotional distance with no clear explanation, understand this: it was not random. At some point, you broadcasted signals that lowered your perceived value. Tone, posture, rhythm, emotional responsiveness, nonverbal communication overrides words every time. The man who constantly adapts himself to her reactions stops being magnetic and becomes functional. Comfort replaces tension. Familiarity replaces intrigue. She may trust you. She may appreciate you. She may even care deeply for you, and still never desire you. This is one of the most painful truths a man can face. Desire requires respect. Respect requires internal strength, and strength cannot coexist with emotional collapse. The researchers' most revealing findings did not come from ordinary dating scenarios, but from environments where desire was supposed to be irrelevant. Even in purely transactional sexual encounters, attraction still operated. The women charged the same. The service was identical, but their responses were not. Some men received mechanical attention. Others received presence. Why? The difference was not money, not appearance, not conversation. It was energy. Men who projected calm authority, emotional containment, and self-possession elicited reactions that could not be explained logically. These women, trained to detach, still responded viscerally, not because they wanted to, because their bodies did. Men who did not seek validation, who did not rush, who did not perform. Men who moved slowly, who spoke economically, who occupied space without apology. They did not try to impress. They did not explain themselves. They simply existed from a centered core, and that core was felt. Some women admitted feeling nervous around these men, not afraid, alert. That alertness is attraction. It is the nervous system responding to perceived strength. The most disturbing discovery was this: the men who tried hardest generated the least desire. Compliments, excessive politeness, over-engagement, all of it reduced impact, because desire does not reward effort, It rewards perceived power. This is not manipulation, it is observation. And if this operates even in environments designed to suppress attraction, imagine how powerful it is in real relationships. Value is not contextual, it is projected from the inside out. You cannot compensate for insecurity with resources. You cannot override weak energy with charm. Your nervous system speaks before your mouth ever opens. Most men misunderstand confidence. They think it is a performance. It is not. Confidence is the absence of internal negotiation. It is not bravado. It is not dominance over others. It is dominance over your own reactions. A woman does not evaluate you by what you say about yourself. She evaluates you by how you respond to pressure, silence, uncertainty, and resistance. Before the first word is spoken, your body has already been read. Posture, breathing, movement, eye contact. Slouched posture communicates collapse. Rapid movements communicate anxiety. Excessive smiling communicates submission. Controlled movement communicates authority. Stillness communicates confidence. Comfortable silence communicates self-trust. These signals are not learned through technique. They are expressions of internal state. You cannot fake them for long. Your body will always reveal what you believe about yourself. This is not a curse. It is an invitation. Because once the internal structure is rebuilt, the external language changes automatically. Attraction is not created by saying the right things. It is created by being congruent. Congruence is when your internal reality matches your external expression. That is what women respond to when they say, "There's something about him." They are not describing logic. They are describing nervous system recognition. When value is lost, withdrawal follows. Not anger, not confrontation, withdrawal. She becomes less responsive, less engaged, less emotionally present. This is not punishment, it is instinct. When perceived value drops, emotional investment retracts. Most men misinterpret this and escalate effort. They chase, they explain, they plead, and every reaction confirms the perception that caused the withdrawal in the first place. This is the collapse point. Silence is not absence here. It is power, not passive silence, structured silence. Silence that comes from movement, not waiting. Rebuilding value is not about getting her back. It is about restoring your center. You do not recover attraction by reminding her who you were. You recover it by becoming someone she has never seen. That transformation begins physically. A strong body signals vitality and direction. Emotionally, by removing dependency and stabilizing your internal state. Psychologically, by pursuing a purpose that exists independent of her attention. Improvement is not a tactic, it is a correction. If she returns, she should encounter a man who does not need her. If she does not, the work was still necessary. Because the true loss was never her. It was your posture. A man who rebuilds his structure does not seek approval. He selects. And that is where power returns, not through words, through presence. Desire is not requested, it is provoked. Respect is not begged for, it is generated. And the strongest signal you will ever send is this: you chose yourself, not out of bitterness, not out of anger, out of alignment. A man who is aligned cannot be ignored, not because he demands attention, but because his energy creates it. This is not about perfection. It is about being grounded. Because what you project in silence determines whether you are desired or dismissed. And once you understand that, you never lose value again.